So today we have Sally, who's a 50-year veteran of the TCEQ and its predecessor agencies, and she has served in various capacities at the state. Sally first started working for the state in 1971 in data entry. She attended Austin Community College and then moved on to work for information resources with reports and databases for internal and external customers until 2002. And then she moved on to Water Supply Division, working under the Total Coliform Rule Team, and then in 2007, progressed on to the Enforcement Team under the Drinking Water Special Functions, which is now under the Drinking Water Technical Review Team. Please welcome Sally Paramo.
Thank you, and hopefully everybody's awake because it's the end of the program now. And I will try to bring you all up to date on our outreach program. I am on the Drinking Water Technical Review Team, and today my talk is going to be pretty much about public water system criteria, the enforcement overview, kind of give you some idea of what pre-enforcement outreach we do here at TCEQ, and a little bit about post-enforcement. So for a public water system, what is a public water system? Well, a public water system is any system that provides drinking water for human consumption. They serve at least 15 connections, and they serve at least 25 individuals 60 days out of the year. So what if I'm no longer meet the definition of a public water system? Because whenever I do outreaches, I get these people and says, I don't think I'm really a public water system anymore. Well, if you think that you're no longer a public water system, then you need to definitely contact our public drinking water inventory team, because if we have you as an active system in our database, even though you think that you're no longer a public water system, the violations are still being accumulated if you don't collect your monthly distribution samples, or there's other items that you have to take care of, like collect your lead and copper, your chemical monitoring reporting. All of that is still ongoing because we have you as a public water system active. So you definitely need to contact our public water system inventory team at the email that you see up there, or you can call our main line at the 512-239-4691 and let them know that you are no longer meeting the definition of a public water system, and you need to talk to someone on the inventory team. Some of the reasons you probably aren't meeting the definition of a public water system is because maybe you consolidated with the city who was close by, and you had the opportunity now because maybe they're spreading their lines out to where you're at. So you may easily connect to the closest city there is and be consolidated and no longer have to worry about the rules and regulations. Or you decided to inactivate your water system, and so you definitely need to call TCEQ and make us aware of that. Or if, in the case of mobile home parks or what have you, if you had trailers move out and you didn't replace those, and now you're not meeting the 15 connections, or you are serving less than 25 customers 60 days out of the year, then you need to contact our inventory team and let us know. Or you can easily contact also your regional investigator and make them aware of it, that you're no longer, so they can go out there, do a focus, and make sure that we inactivate your system in the event that you indeed are in an active system. Because as an active public water system, there are many standards that you have to abide by. So, like I said, always make sure that you contact our inventory team. If you have my number and you don't know who to reach, you give me a call and I'll give you direction on who you need to contact in order to make that possible. So what happens if you're a new owner of a public water system? I'm not a public water system, but I need to tell somebody, well, you need to call TCEQ also, make us aware that you think that you are meeting the definition of a public water system, and it could be because maybe you were working with our plans review team that y'all were working on getting your system activated, and finally all of that has been approved. So give us a call. Give me a call or give our inventory team a call at the main number, or send us an email, and then we'll get back with you as to what it is that you need to do in order to be activated. You can always look at our drinking water watch also. Just out of curiosity, how many people are familiar with our drinking water watch? Raise your hands. Okay. That's good, because our drinking water watch database is something that you all should be familiar with, because you can check that database 24/7 and see where you stand. If you have any violations, if we have your point of contact up to date, that's important, because then we know we're communicating with the right people at the water system to relay any information pertaining to that system. Whenever we start talking about our enforcement, we use at TCEQ what we call Enforcement Response Policy, which is our ERP. We run an ERP listing every week to determine what systems are meeting the definition of a public water system, whether they have enough points to be reviewed at this time, and we use it through the ERP policy, which considers water systems compliance status. It prioritizes our violation per the Safe Drinking Water Act, and then in a little bit I'll give you more details on how our points are accumulated. We use what we call enforcement targeting tool, and that is a system-based approach and calculation method for determining public water systems enforcement priority points. We also consider the violations, and we consider the violations related to federally regulated contaminants. Our ETT formula, I know I do a lot of outreach, and whenever I'm talking to customers, I say, well, you have 10 points, so you're 1 point away from meeting enforcement. Well, this is a formula that we use at TCEQ to determine whether you are meeting enforcement criteria. We take the sum, and our violations are deemed in different categories. It depends on the health issue that it's going to be affecting your customers. So the S there on the screen stands for the violation severity factor, because we have 10-point violations, we have 5-point violations, and we have 1-point violations. And then we have what we call N, which is the number of years that the system's oldest violations has been unaddressed. So on top of your violations, whenever you get a violation, you want to address it as soon as possible, because I know, like public notices, you have a year to post that public notice. So you put it aside in your basket. Well, that basket gets full with more work, and then by the time that basket is starting to empty, you fill it up again, and guess what? That notice that you're going to have to post that public notice stays way at the bottom, and then a year will go by. On top of it still not being resolved or addressed, you have another point added to your system for not posting that public notice, because it's been a full year cycle that has happened that you have not addressed that violation. And we can look at that particular one violation adding up to 5 points. If you let it go up to 5 years, that it's added to your point history that you presently have for not addressing violations. So lots of times I get people who tells me, look, I only have 3 or 4 violations. Why am I meeting the definition? It's because you have this 5-point violation over here that you haven't addressed your public notice violation. So in essence, you have 5 points plus the public notice, that's 6 points to begin with. So you're beyond halfway of meeting enforcement there. So if you have any violation or any notice of violation that comes into your office, if you don't know what to do with it, give us a call. We'll be happy to assist you. If you don't have the template for the public notice, give me a call. I'll provide that to you. The majority of the time, I'll even take the time to fill out some of the information for you to make it easy. I'll highlight in yellow what y'all need to fill out, and then you sign it, date it, send it back to us. We'll review it with the compliance officer, and if it's deemed adequate, we'll return it to compliance. And that's out of your plate. It's no longer in your database under your water system, plus it's been taken care of, and you don't have to worry about that anymore, because I'm going to worry about it at that time. So our severity point, this is how we base our violations. So any acute violation, that's your RTCR, E. coli, any MCL violation, each one of those violations is worth 5 points. So whether it be arsenic, whether it be trihalomethanes, whatever MCL violation that you have, it's going to have a total of 5 points attached to it. So if you're on a quarterly basis, let's say for arsenic, and you get 2 hits of 2 quarters of exceeding the MCL, you're going to have 10 points right there. Plus, if you don't post your public notice, that's where that point is going to throw you over the threshold of meeting the enforcement criteria. So anytime you can, or if you don't understand the violation itself, give us a call and we'll give you guidance. If I can't answer your questions, I'm going to direct you to the right compliance officer that can assist you in getting those violations returned to compliance. So again, for enforcement criteria, anytime a system meets 11 points or greater, that means you are meeting enforcement criteria. That means that more than likely you might be hearing from me and saying, hey, usually I'm going to try to get y'all before the 11 points. So anytime between 9 and 10 points is when I usually try to reach the water systems. But then again, y'all got to remember, we have over 7,000 systems in the state of Texas, and there's one of me. So if I call you or I send you an email, and I need for y'all to get back with me as soon as possible, and sometimes y'all might be saying, well, this lady doesn't stop calling me, I'm going to get to her, but she doesn't know my pile that I have on this side. Well, when Sally calls, y'all need to respond to Sally, because Sally only has a couple of days to work with you to get you to the point where you're not going to be sent to enforcement, where it means that you're going to be fined by the state of Texas. So I tell you, it's a lot better for you to hear from me than for you to hear from enforcement, because then you're facing penalties. You're still going to have to return that violation to compliance, because the corrective action behind it is to correct those violations. So it's better to talk to me now than to talk to me later. So I'm going to be your best friend, because I want to keep y'all away from enforcement. That's my job, and that's what I strive to do. So if anything, just respond to my email. Say, hey, I got your email. Tell me what it is, or I'm going to call you tomorrow morning. And so I'll know that you're calling me, so I can have your paperwork up front for me, so I can be able to relate the information so we can fill it out, return the violation to compliance, get you under the threshold of not being at 11 points or greater, and then it'll give you ample time to work on your other violations, so we're not back at this situation. But one thing y'all do need to remember is that if you are posting your notices, make sure that you send me all the documents so we can review them all at once. Whatever it says on my emails, go ahead and do. If I tell you that we need your certificate of delivery and your mandatory language to complete your public notice, make sure that you send me all the documents, because then it gets difficult when we're trading back and forth the emails and we're trying to complete one set. By that time, I've already forgotten you send me the mandatory language, and I'm only waiting for the certificate of delivery, and I might respond back to you, well, you send me the certificate of delivery, now I need the mandatory language. So if you can, send me all the documents that we're talking about for that particular violation, send them all at once so we can take care of it at once and be done with it. So you're saying that a system has inactivated?
Yes, ma'am.
And should you continue taking care of those violations?
Yes,
the best thing to do is, and I'll tell you why also, the best thing to do for that question is, yes, you should continue working on those violations. So you're telling me that there might not be anybody yet, but you still have to post your public notice. Still post those public notice, because people would still be interested. If people have cancer or other ailments that they have, they would still be interested in that public notice. Maybe it doesn't affect anybody, but just the knowledge that you informed your customers. Plus, if your water system is being closed out now, and then you decide next year that you're going to sell your water system, where your water system stays with the same PWS ID. It doesn't go away. It's just like a social security number. It doesn't go away. So if somebody else comes and opens up that water system, guess what? Those violations are still there. And that new owner is going to have to do something about returning those violations to compliance. So they might be giving you a phone call and say, hey, how come you didn't take care of your problems over here? So as a courtesy, if you are going to shut it down, it's best to call TCEQ and let us know that you're fixing to shut down, and we're going to work with you. We'll tell you what violations you presently have, and then we're going to give you guidance on how to close them out. We'll direct you to the right compliance officer so you can close out your violations and be in good standing. Okay, our goal for any public water system, many times at the beginning when I first started was working with this outreach, a lot of public water systems is just like, you just want to send me to enforcement, you just want to take my money, you just want to shut me down. And I worked with enforcement a lot of times. I've been working with it for a long time, and I could see what was wrong with the water systems. They were trying to come into compliance, but the problem was that they didn't know how to return to compliance, or there was too many details that they were small systems and they didn't know what to do. So I talked to our managers, and good thing they listened, because I said, I think we need to reach out to the customers before they go to enforcement, because I'm sure some of them are willing to work with us, they just don't know how to work with us. So we started this outreach program, and we have gotten fair numbers that work with us. We've gotten them not to go to enforcement, and they know that they talk to their neighbors, and I've heard people, well, so-and-so sent me, they told me that you can help me, you know, this is my predicament, I don't want to go to enforcement because financially I don't have the money to go, but if you call Sally, she'll help you. And that's what we've had a lot of systems, you know, because like I said, I might not be able to get to all of them, but if you tell your neighbor or your friends there that, hey, we can help you, TCEQ has a mechanism that we can help y'all return these violations to compliance, just give us a call. And like I said, we have, every program has their own compliance officer. So if you call somebody at the RTCR program area and you're asking them questions about lead and copper, they're probably not going to be able to answer it because their expertise is RTCR. But if you call me and you tell me, well, Sally, my problem is lead and copper, well, I'm going to direct you directly to the lead and copper compliance officer so they can assist you, and they're talking the same language that you are, strictly lead and copper or RTCR or what have you. So that's a good thing about it, because our goal is not to send people to enforcement, it's to return those violations to compliance. And our goal is to ensure continued efforts to hold water systems accountable for compliance. Because if TCEQ wouldn't do that, some water systems would just let things go. You know, they just let things go out of hand. And every water system has its customers, and every water system is helping out individuals that it can affect their health. So for that reason, somebody's got to be the top person to make sure that all these rules and regulations are being followed, and that's where we come in. Our enforcement process is we do pre-enforcement, so if you want help, we can help you, but you gotta give me timely manner responses in order for me to be able to stop your enforcement case. If that doesn't happen, then we'll send you to enforcement. If that doesn't, once we send you to enforcement, then you have to deal with the post-enforcement after the fact. So pre-enforcement basically is a means of us reaching out to the public water systems whenever they're getting ready to meet the 11-point threshold. And we try to help the systems return their violations to compliance. What do? We coordinate with the TCEQ staff to help y'all, depending on the program area that it is. We help you with feasible violations that can easily be returned to compliance, such as public notices, chemical monitoring reporting, and other reporting requirements that y'all have. It's important that I get a timely response back from y'all whenever y'all are posting these notices, whenever y'all reach out to the lab and pay any outstanding fees so that the lab can send us a result so we can return those violations to compliance. And also, always check your documentation when you're sending it out to us, because if you're sending, like I said, if you're sending public notice and I don't have an actual signature on there, unfortunately, it's deemed inadequate, and you already wasted time on it, and you send it to me, and now I can't deem it adequate, so we're back and forth. We're wasting time here. But if you fill it out according to what the email says, fill it out, sign, date it, send it to me, we can have the compliance officer review it. As soon as they respond to me, I try to respond back to you and let you know, hey, thank you for sending in your public notice as requested. It has been deemed adequate to return to compliance. Now you are no longer meeting the definition, but don't quit now, because we still have other violations. And if you don't address those other violations, you're going to be back in the same boat that we are at this time. And maybe next time I might not be able to get to you in time. So you really, whenever I do outreach on y'all, I'm kind of hoping that if it's a public notice that I helped you with, put it on your bulletin board. The next time you get the same one, just kind of paste and copy the current information with what you have. Do what you're supposed to do, post it or hand it out to your customers, and send me copies so we can return that violation to compliance. And in other words, I've trained you how to do it for the second time around. If you forgot how to do it the first time around, that's okay. Give me a call back. I'll still assist you, and we can get that taken care of. We can help you with collecting and reporting the samples in current monitoring period. We'll return previous violations the same type to compliance. I see this a lot in like lead and copper. I see some systems that have maybe 5 separate violations for lead and copper, and they're supposed to collect, let's say, 20 samples per month or every 6 months. Well, they look at it like, okay, I've already missed 5 different compliance periods, and now I'm having to return these violations or address these violations. They're thinking that they're going to have to collect 25 samples, 20 sets. Well, no, 5 sets of 20 samples. And that's not the case. That's why we say whenever you are unsure of what it is to address your violation, talk to us, talk to TCEQ, talk to the compliance officer, and they'll give you direction. And that, in a particular case like that, if we get a complete set of lead and copper samples and they're turned in by the right compliance period, then the prior violations will be returned to compliance. So see, all this time you've been worrying, I had this customer tell me, all this time I've been worrying about the fact that I was going to have to collect 100 samples, you know. And I said, no, that's why it's important that you contact TCEQ, because what you read and what some of the outcome would be is completely different. So talk to us, you know, communicate with us. I know that I deal with all the program areas in order to make my outreach work, and every one of them that I work with, they're always helpful. They usually send me emails back. Hey, Sally, I reached out to this customer that you wanted me to help. It's a done deal. So I always get good references from our compliance officers. So as far as I'm concerned, any program area that you have problems, you can reach out to our compliance officers and they'll respond back. Now, sometimes they might not respond back as fast as you want them to, because again, you got to remember, you have 1 or 5 or whatever systems, we have over 7,000 that we have to evaluate on a everyday basis. So we'll get back with you, and if we don't reach out back to you, well, then give us a call back again. You know, maybe for some reason we opened up the email, we got busy with something else, we closed it, and unfortunately we bypassed it. So give us a call back. If we haven't responded to you in a day or so, give us a call back and we'll assist you. So what happens when a system receives an NOV? Make sure that you read the full letter, because many times he'll tell you who to reach out to. Contact the compliance staff that it says in the letter, and make sure that the violation has been returned to compliance before you assume that the violation has been returned to compliance, because many times you send in your paperwork, you sometimes don't expect us to reply back. I try to reply back to all my emails. You know, whenever I hear back from the compliance officer, I try to let you know that, hey, it was deemed adequate, it's been returned to compliance, or I'm missing a signature on this one, I need for you to complete it and send it back to me. But if you don't hear from us, you can always go to our Drinking Water Watch program and check and see if it's been returned to compliance for sure. And later on, I'll show you where to look for that. Okay, so what is enforcement? Enforcement is, like I said, any system that has 11 points or greater is an enforcement targeting review. And then what happens there? What happens is if the violations are all valid, we're going to write up the enforcement case. We're going to send it to our Office of Enforcement. They're going to review the violations again over there. They're going to make sure that they're valid violations, and then they'll put a report together. That's when they're going to communicate with the public water system and let them know that, hey, your system is an enforcement. Now, these are valid violations that you have unless you can prove otherwise, if you have documentation to prove it. Otherwise, this is the fine that we're imposing on your system. And then this is a corrective action that happens. So at that point, you can either contact us again and let us know, hey, OCE tells me that I have to do corrective action in order to close out my case. What do I need to do? We'll work with you, we'll direct you to the compliance officer, and we'll try to help you return these violations to compliance, because it's got to happen in order for you to close out your enforcement case. So post-enforcement, that's where post-enforcement comes in. I do little post-enforcement because I have so many big pre-enforcement lists, but I still work with people who want to be helped. If they give me a call and say, I've already gone to enforcement, now they want me to do the corrective action, I don't know what to do. Give me a call, I can help you with that. Anytime you get an enforcement case, there's going to be an agreed order. That's what comes out of it. You get an agreed order, and that agreed order indicates what all you have to do. So whenever you turn that information over to our enforcement people, let's say that they say, okay, send it to this email address. You also need to remember to send us that information, because in the OCE division, they handle to close out your case. But then in our database, if you needed, let's say you needed to collect samples and you send OCE the results, we might not have them on our end in order to close out the violations on our end. So you can either give me a call and say, hey, Sally, I completed my paperwork and returned all my violations to compliance, and I turned it all over to OCE. Do you have that information? If I don't have that information, I'm going to request that you send it to me. That way we have you for sure returned to compliance all the way around, and it doesn't come up again for you. When is the best time to contact me? It's definitely not when you're meeting enforcement criteria, because by that time, if it's meeting enforcement criteria, our protocol is to move the enforcement case, unless I can get something pretty quick. Nowadays, the way the weather is and all, there's different types of emergencies that are popping up with each of the water systems. So kind of sort of like the situation that we were, a couple of years ago, where we got all that cold weather that we weren't expecting, and then our electricity went out, and systems didn't have no electricity, and they couldn't collect samples, they couldn't get out. You know, make TCEQ aware of little things like that. It might not seem much to y'all, but it does mean a lot to us, because if you're not able to collect that sample for that particular month, we can at least document that that sample wasn't collected because the system was not capable of collecting it because they had no water, you know, the pipes were busted or what have you. So make us aware of little things. They might not mean too much to y'all at the time because y'all are so busy, but if y'all remember, send us an email and just let us know public water system so-and-so was not able to collect their samples this month because, and we are aware of it, you know. So that way at least TCEQ is also aware of that factor. A lot of this is just redundant stuff, but I do want to make you aware that, you know, we're here to help systems. You know, any question is a question. It's not that it can go unknown. It could be the silliest question, but give me a call if you need guidance on your violations. Let me know what your question is. I might not be able to answer it right then, but I'll get an answer for you eventually, or direct it to someone who can answer the question at the time. How do you know whether you have violations? The best way to find out whether you have violations is to go to our Drinking Water Watch database, which is a live database that's open 24/7. The main thing is you want to check the status of your violations. You want to make sure that we have the right point of contact information in there. Maybe your operator left and y'all replaced him with Joe Smith now, and we don't have Joe Smith in our database. Well, make sure that you call us up or send us an email and let us know that we replaced this point of contact. So if we need to send out any correspondence to the system, we know who to reach out to, and it's getting to the right individual. For Drinking Water Watch, the top arrow that you see there, in order to look for the information that I've been talking about this time, is you plug in your public water system ID there. That's your 7-digit ID, which means the 7-digit is the first 3 digits are the county that this water system is in. The last 4 digits is a unique number assigned to this system, which is going to carry over. I don't care how many owners it has. That ID is going to carry over. And then at the bottom, you just click on the search for water systems. It's going to take you to this page here. And under violations, at the top, you click on it, and it's going to show you this screen that you see there. And if you go to the far right, that's the main concern that I want you to, if anything, that you check that one. On the far right, on the column area, it says, has a violation been resolved or returned to compliance? Anytime you see a no there, that means that's an unaddressed violation that you need to address at this time. So if you don't know what that violation is or what it pertains to, you pick up the phone or send me an email and say, hey, Sally, I see under violation number so-and-so that I have a violation. Can you help me with it? What is it talking about? What does it pertain to? So I can resolve it. We can help you with that. So if you go to the far left now, because before I had you on the far right, and on this screen it shows that all of them say no. So this system definitely needs some assistance, and they need assistance now because they can easily start meeting enforcement criteria. If you go to the far left and you don't know what that violation pertains to, like on the 75, where you see a 75, that's a public notice, but you don't know what that public notice pertains to. You can go to the far left, and where that error is, click on the number where the 75 is, click on the far left number, and then it'll come up with information such as, under the action type, you want to see an SOX or an RTC. If you don't see an SOX and an RTC there, that stands for Return to Compliance, either an SOX or RTC. If you don't see one there, that means that that violation needs to be addressed, so you need to either fix it by you knowing that what that particular violation that they're talking about, or give us a call and we can tell you what that violation pertains to, and we can assist you in returning that violation to compliance. It could be as easily as maybe you turn in an RTCR sample and something was the PWS number was transposed. So we didn't get that information under your ID number. So what we're going to direct you to do is you're going to have to fix your chain of custody form, initial it, and then send it back to the lab so the lab can make that correction at their end, and they'll forward that information to TCEQ that's corrected, and that violation will get returned to compliance. So sometimes it's an easy fix, sometimes it can be a little bit more complicated, but still we can work with you to get it resolved. So how do I stay out of enforcement? You address all outstanding violations. You post your public notice at the beginning when you get it assigned, that way you don't forget about them. You contact TCEQ with any questions that you have, and you don't assume violations will return to compliance until you actually see it on Drinking Water Watch. Get familiar with Drinking Water Watch. That'll take you a long way. On some of the other ways of avoiding enforcement is check, especially like lead and copper. If you don't collect a set of lead and coppers and you were scheduled to collect 10 on an annual basis and you forget the following year to collect that year, maybe the next thing around it's going to be every 6 months. So you got to stay on top of how many samples you have to collect and what's your compliance period. That's very important, because if you collect them outside your compliance period, or if you didn't label your samples correctly, they weren't from registered sites, unfortunately, you're not going to get credit for it. You'll still have a violation, and then the next time around, you still have to collect it on an every 6 months basis. So if you're not, Drinking Water Watch has those schedules. That's another thing that you can check on Drinking Water Watch. If you don't know your schedules from one year to the other, give your compliance officer a call or give us a call, and we can assist you in what your the number of samples that you have to collect for that year and the compliance period. Don't assume and don't just go and collect samples, because I know sometimes you change operators and the operators had it one way in their public water system database, and somebody else goes and collects the samples for lead and copper. They sent them in, maybe 2 of them got rejected because we had the wrong registered sites. So you do want to make sure that you are aware of how many samples and how many in your registered sites that they're good. So if you're in compliance, stay in compliance. Just continue doing what you normally do, and you'll stay away from hearing from me, because the only time that I usually reach out to systems is if they are meeting or getting close to meeting enforcement criteria. But y'all can call me at any time if y'all have other questions, or y'all just have one violation that you got to take care of but you don't know how. Give me a call. I'll assist you. And a program area that really helps you out also is what we call our financial, managerial, and technical assistance. We usually send out systems that are having a lot of problems, that maybe they just took over a system and they really don't know what are the do's and don'ts about a water system. We send out FMT. They'll go out there free of charge. They'll try to answer any of your questions, and they'll work with you in trying to return your violations to compliance. Or you can reach out also to small business assistance. You can look for funding options, your public notice outreach. Even your regional investigators can help you, and you could call us to see if there's other means of assistance. FMT, if you yourself want to reach out to our FMT people, just go to that website there, to that link there, or give them a call at that number, and you can set up a date for them to come out there and assist you and provide and helping you figure out what is the best solution to resolve your violations, or if you have questions. This is a link for the small business if you want to reach out to them to see how they can assist you. There's also a courtesy reminder system now that if you go to the link at the bottom, you can set it up to where you'll get courtesy texts or emails regarding monitoring requirements, report deadlines, and stakeholder meetings. And anytime you need assistance, and if you don't get a hold of me, my other coworkers, Caleb Ingo and Carmelo Manning, can assist you. We're all knowledgeable of the outreach program or the post outreach, and we can definitely help y'all get back into compliance. I really appreciate the time that y'all gave me this afternoon, and like I said, if y'all have any questions, give me a call. If you're talking to one of your neighbors and they have violations and they say they don't know how to resolve them, give them my number and send them my way, and we'll help them return to compliance also. Thank you very much.